Hey, thank you so much. Wow. Thank you. It is, it's great to be here. One of the reasons it's great to be here is that I have some fellow warriors at a table down here that every month, these guys come and do part of our Every Man's Battle intensive workshop and reduce the demand for the sex industry, and they are amazing people, and so it's just great. I didn't know they were going to be here, and so it's like old home week for me or something like that. I don't know. But this morning I was in Billings, Montana, speaking to 5,000 women in an arena with Women of Faith this morning, and I got to tell you, they were dressed just a little bit differently there in Billings, Montana. Not that I noticed stuff like that, but it's a very, very sharp contrast, and I was an instant hit with them because I had a picture of my wife riding a horse and shooting a rifle. And so we were speaking the same language. I was a little more comfortable there because I was raised not around here. I was raised in West Texas where, a little town called Ranger, Texas, where they would typically say, possum was the other white meat. And it was, we didn't have a lot. I remember knocking over a Flintstone jelly jar glass and breaking it. My mother saying, well, I guess we can't have nice things. And we didn't have nice things. And so this is really an amazing place to be speaking. And I had kind of a strange background. I had an uncle, lived next door, my aunt and uncle. He was a very weird guy. He had a metal plate in his head. He'd been an Air Force pilot, and not a very good one, or he wouldn't have the plate. But he was married to my aunt, who had just a really weird, she was a hypochondriac. She wanted on her tombstone for it to say C. And but she wore this little neck brace all the time, and she had never been in an accident. She just got, tired of holding her head up. And that was kind of the environment that I was raised in. And it was really unique to be raised that way. Right there with all the family, including my grandfather. My grandfather was kind of a Texan's Texan. And in his office, I can tell you, I can still remember the pictures that he had up in his office, in his machine shop, as if it was yesterday, when I was a 4-year-old little boy going in there. Why? My very conservative Southern Baptist parents thought that was okay for me to see. I have no idea. I was actually born in the same year, 1953. I am in my 60s now because, everything hurts when you're in your 60s, and the only thing that doesn't hurt are things that don't work. But it's true. Every morning is like the morning after, even though there was no night before. It's a horrible thing. Everybody hits it, though. And you get with it. But the same year that I was born, Hugh Hefner birthed into this world Playboy magazine. I can tell you that Marilyn Monroe was the first centerfold of that magazine because my grandfather had that centerfold up in his office. And I can tell you what it looked like, even though I saw it many, many years ago. And that experience with pornography for me planted some seeds that would sprout up and would affect my life, all of my life. Because very early on, I learned through that women were objects. They were objects that were created to provide pleasure to men, to be used by men. That's how I saw women as a result of my grandfather's attitude toward women and the pictures that I saw in his office that somehow my parents allowed me to see. And those seeds that were planted led to my own struggle with pornography, my own addiction, my own using of women, seeing them as products and things that didn't possess a soul or a heart, seeing them as inferior to men, And as a user, got a girl pregnant, paid for her to have an abortion, a tremendously shameful part of my life. And it took that extreme. After the abortion, I became very sick from the shame and the guilt, and it was the first time that I realized that women were women, were real people. And some of the things I've been able to do, some of the ways God has blessed my life, is to try to give back to women that I have been so hurtful to. But what happened to me happened to a lot of men, because Playboy was labeled as soft porn, as if it wasn't really that bad. And when it came out, people just kind of allowed it to be. I had a pastor who was at one point subscribing because he read the articles, if you can imagine that. In the 70s, there were some anti-porn crusaders, some women that were committed to doing away with pornography because other magazines came along. And they said that if pornography continued to proliferate the way it was with Playboy, that women would not be safe in their homes, that men would be so sexually stimulated that they would just be coming home demanding sex all the time, and women would never have a moment of peace in their own homes. Well, it's interesting because they had no idea that the internet was going to come along, and they had no idea what proliferation was going to mean. If you talk to married women, you'll find that most of them are quite safe in their homes sexually because the exact opposite effect occurred with pornography. Because once men started to use pornography or use women in the form of pornography, it was the gateway drug to objectification. It was the gateway drug to nothing would ever satisfy, except for something other than a real live woman that you were married to. Because there was an addictive element to it from the very beginning. Even if you weren't fully addicted, there was an addictive element that drove you outside of the norm, drove you to do something illicit, something that made you a bad little boy, even though you were supposed to be a man. And so we've seen just in a generation, men involved in the sex industry going from being the exception to being the expectation that in some form, if a man hasn't dealt with it, he's probably involved in some way. That's why we call the book Every Man's Battle. You have to deal with it. Over 3 million men have read that book, and we've worked with over 12,000 men, and we're so grateful to do it. And one of the things that has been so reaffirming to me is to discover the deep amount of shame and regret and remorse in the heart of men when they finally wake up and realize what they've been involved with. And especially to hear men weep over the fact that they have taken advantage of someone and considered them less than or treated them less than. Because sometimes you forget that all men are not heartless or soulless. They are just trapped in an addiction that won't let them go. I think that so many marriages are hurt today because of this, what I call this bifurcation myth. A lot of single men think that they can look at pornography on the internet, that they can go to massage parlors, that they can get involved with prostitutes, that they can do everything. And then once they get married, and one night when they eat wedding cake, all of that goes away. And I have found that wedding cake is not that powerful. It just doesn't do it. Because men think you can just do whatever you want to do, and then once you're married, the problem goes away. But as all of us know, once you're married, the problem gets worse. it intensifies. And so what we're going to do at New Life is we're going to continue to try to reduce the demand. But we want to support everything that you are doing to try to save these women who are exploited by us men. Men just like me. Men who made some really bad choices. And who, I probably don't go through a day that I don't think about the regret that I had. You know, for a long time I thought that my job was to go through life showing God just how much shame I could experience. And then I realized that that was not doing anybody any good except for Satan. And so one day I decided that we were going to start doing something to try to give back. And you know, in this world, it's easy to talk a good game about giving. And I'm just excited to see so many people here that want to be part of giving back to something that really, truly is changing lives. You know, how many people even care? How many people even know that women are trapped and enslaved because of the myths and the corporate stupidity of our society about this whole industry? And I tell you, I would do anything to help you in whatever you're doing, and I applaud everyone here. You know, I feel kind of like an arsonist speaking to a group of firefighters. You know, it's not comfortable. But I am so thrilled to get to come and to be part of this. And I just hope and pray that this will be the beginning of many, many, many more. And by the way, I live in Indianapolis now. And we have a ministry that was trained in Indianapolis by this ministry. And every night, those women, they go out and they've got these little pink bags. And it is so exciting to come to the mothership and be able to say, you're making an impact in our town. Thank you very much. God bless.